Hello gorgeous people, I am back making a mess with you again today, and if you saw my last video, I did a comparison of all of my white supplies that I may use in colouring and mixed media, including a little opacity test on my pencils, and I promised that I would come back and repeat the experiment with all of the black supplies that I would use in colouring and mixed media. So why am I doing this test and what is it for? We are going to be testing to see where we are with layering and compatibility. So we're seeing what materials lay on top of other materials, so what's going to play in the order of operations, but also to see out of what I have, what is the blackest of what I have. And I've just noticed I haven't pulled out the Neocolor one, so I'm just going to quickly grab that. And then we can begin with the test. So I'll pull this out. Here's my little test sheet so that you can see what we're working with. I'm going to be seeing how the products layer on top of some various mediums here. We have plain white paper. This particular white paper is this drawing pad, which is more like a mixed media pad because it is very textured and feels more like a watercolor paper. We then have acrylic. This example is using a Posca pen because obviously that's acrylic base, and also just shout out to the seamless, non-patchy, non-streaky finish to that. That's a drop of water that I spilt, but that is Posca's. Loving them. But that would also be, so if there's any resistance or any materials that work really nicely on that, then you can assume that would be true for any acrylic base. So acrylic paint, acrylic pens, you name it. Then we have a waxier based pencil, which is our Prismacolor, and an oily based pencil, which is our Polychromos. I'm expecting that they will be very similar, but it's just to make sure and just to check. This is watercolor. This is just a Winsor & Newton watercolor palette. So again, you can assume for this, if there's any color being picked up or anything that doesn't work or play nicely with this or vice versa, then this is going to be true of all water-based mediums, whether it's water-based crayon that's been activated, a watercolor pencil that's been activated, you name it. This will be a good representation. Oil pastel. This is a Pentel oil pastel, but again, I don't own any oil paints, but you could assume similar properties between the oil pastels and the oil paints. Alcohol marker, chalk pastel. This was a Faber-Castell, Faber-Castell soft pastel, but again, this could be a pastel pencil. It could be potentially like the charcoal as well. Then down this side, not that you can see it, I have my white gesso just to see if we get different results on white gesso. And then we have a wax crayon. In this case, it is the Neocolor 1 crayons. And I figured those are the ones that I really want to see how my blacks perform on top. And then this second half of the test is going to be continuing the line all the way across. But what I'll want to know is what will lay on top. How does it react on top? And I think because they were new in, I'm going to add in here that we want to test the wax crayons on top as well, and that will be the Neocolor 1. So here's all the supplies that I've pulled out, including this pen. Hopefully we'll get all of these done and fit on the page. So you can see I've got various bits and bobs here. Let me move these all to the side, and we'll start with the ones that I'm likely to make a mess with, which are the two paint options we've got here. Then we'll go down to pens, and then we will finish with as many different pencils that will fit, because a lot of the pencils are obviously going to be pretty much the same results, but at that point we're just testing the difference in opacity. And if you remember on the video that I did with all the white mediums, I took out a piece of black paper to then check the pencils separately on the white paper, on the black paper. So I'll probably do something similar with the black opacity testing here, and that will just require me to just pull pull out a piece of black paper, a piece of white paper to do the blacks on top. And that will be when we come down to the pencils. So let's begin. Right, now ignore all this muck. When I was doing the whites, obviously I had to clean nibs and stuff a lot. We had some chalk options in there and you know, obviously a lot of different reactions going on, so I needed to keep my nib clean. Don't be scared of, you know, getting your nibs dirty, because it is all about you know, making sure that you give them a good little run off after you've finished with them, and not being scared, because if you do get scared of using your supplies, you're probably not going to use them very much, and then that is sad. Right, so let's start with, we're going to do the Pebeo gesso. So Pebeo is my choice of gesso. Your mileage will vary in terms of opacity depending on which brand of gesso you buy, but this is just, I like the flow of it, I like the coverage of it. Same with the white gesso, so that's just what I use. And then I have my Winsor & Newton gouache. I haven't really gotten into gouache too much yet, but I have some, so you know, I might play with these this year. Let's find out. I feel that 2024 is going to be a nice year for art for me. I want it, so I think it's going to happen. I was pretty much limited back down to just coloring all through 2023 because I had a big move from the UK to America, and still so many of my art supplies were left back in the UK, but I've been building up art supplies here, shipping things over, and I'm starting to get a bit more organized. I don't have a full art space yet, but we're working on it. Here we go, Pebeo gesso, so just on the white paper, very good. On top of acrylic, very good. On top of wax pencil. Now it looks like we are getting some resistance here. I will lift this to the camera momentarily. I don't think I have anything on there. Oil pencil, watercolor, oil pastel, alcohol marker. Oh, that's interesting. I'm seeing the alcohol marker coming through on the gesso. I didn't expect that. Chalk pastel, and I'll give that a little wipey after the pastel. White gesso, no problem. Wax crayon, did okay. And then this side over here is, like I said, this is going to be the second part of the test, where I then scribble down the whole row with a color of these options so that we can see what is going to work on top. Because, and I'll be working on this video soon, but we need to figure out with mixed media which order you should do the layering when you're putting mediums on top of each other. So here is the gesso. We have a bit of resistance here, and obviously when you're using a wet paintbrush, anything that's going to introduce water, if it's watered down too much, it's going to resist. So it's a little bit tricky with paints that are water-based to control that. But of course, a second coat, I would probably be able to go over that. A second coat, I would probably be able to go over these. But oil pastel is very, very, very resistant. Okay, let's move on to the gouache. This is the Winsor & Newton Designer. Sorry if you are not one to put the brush inside. That's probably a bit naughty. Here we go. Over the white, over acrylic, wax pencil. So you can see here we are getting resist. More oil-based pencil, a little bit less watercolor, oil pastel, we're getting some resisting, alcohol marker, chalk pastel, white gesso, wax crayon, and then this will be our test. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So yeah, anytime you've got that water-based product on top of the waxy or oily medium, be prepared for either difficulty drying on top, smudging, or just complete resisting. But it's interesting that that applies even to pencils. But I'm also surprised about that gesso on top of alcohol marker. I would have thought it wouldn't have even cared, but it could be something in the dye there. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's move on, and we will go on to pens now. So pen wise, let's have a look. I use the Spectrum Noir Illustrators at the moment. Sad to hear that they have discontinued or going to be discontinuing refills. So we'll see where I go with alcohol pens there. But this you can assume to be any alcohol pen. The variations you get between alcohol markers, it's all about the nibs and the color range, really. Alcohol ink is alcohol ink. I've got a Sharpie oil-based pen. In the video on the whites, I used a Pebeo oil-based pen, and it wasn't too great. I'll be interested to see if Sharpie has a white oil-based pen, but I have it in the black, so we'll try how that goes. Then I have my Posca is just blowing everything out the park at the moment for me. I just bought that huge Posca set. You can see that in the haul video I did lately, and I've also painted up a wooden mandala with these, but I thought I was okay. I didn't think I needed Posca pens because I had acrylic paint pens and I wasn't really using them, other than, you know, maybe like some minor details. And then I got Posca paint pens, and they just made me so impressed. And then I have a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. This is the same ink as in one of these big boys, so you can check out a video I did for these new ones, which has the big brush and the fine tip. But for ease, I'm just going to use this one. This will be exactly the same. This is India ink, so you could probably assume that if you have the calligraphy India ink pots, you're going to get the same kind of results if there's any resistance and stuff. Look at that, how shiny that gouache still is. Interesting. So let me write up these ones. So we're going to go for Spectrum Noir alcohol. We're going to do Sharpie oil. We're going to do Posca. We're going to do Pitt pen. Here we go. Alcohol pen up first. This is how it lays down normally. On top of acrylic, on top of wax, oil, watercolor, oil, alcohol on alcohol, chalk pastel, and then clean that off, white gesso, wax crayon, Interesting. And then our swatches for later. Like I said, I can't see anything on my nib, but I'm not taking chances because I like my nibs. Let's look at the Sharpie oil. So Sharpie is coming out with so many products now. Obviously, we know of them from their original permanent markers. And they just seem to have enhanced their range of products over the last however many years they've been doing that. And so now they're starting to go from just the stationery brand into an artist brand. Here we go. Just priming this pen in case you're wondering what I'm doing, but I know that you know what's going on here. Right, there we go. Okay, so oil paint could react similarly to how this will. Probably we'll find that more maybe with the oil pastel. So between these two we should get a good idea of how an oil paint would work. I don't work with oil paint. The clue's in the name really. It's made from oil. I'm not a big fan of that kind of product. Okay, well this is just gliding over everything. I'm going to take a closer look at how and then scribble just to be sure. Might need a minute to dry. We've got a lot of shine out of that, that's expected, but not anywhere near as much shine as I had from the Pebeo oil paint pen in the last video. You can see where it's struggling to dry. That's why it's a bit shinier on the acrylic, the wax, the oil. So we may need to check in on that at the end, again with the wax crayon. I don't want to smudge it. I'm not here to do a smudge test today. So let's move on to Posca. And we have white acrylic, wax, oil, watercolor, oil, picked up a little bit there, alcohol, chalk, gesso, wax. And a swatch for later. I'm also going to pull out all my fine liners because I want to check some things between the fine liners as well. Because I got quite a few and I would like to see if there's any differences with those, because especially when we do the tests on top, I want to know which ones are water reactive and which ones are alcohol reactive. Pitt pen. Here we go. Go, go, Pitt pen. Pitt pens, if you haven't heard, oh no, it doesn't want to go on that at all. Pitt pens, dry permanent, but they're water based and they're very good on slick surfaces for smudging. If you see any of my older art journal videos from back in the day, I would use these a lot for smudging and getting really nice grungy stuff going on. Because they'll also go on top of like a gel medium as well, and they will dry permanent. Doesn't like the oil pastel, doesn't really like the wax crayon, but also I don't want to push down too hard because I don't want to wreck my nib, so I just wouldn't use it on top of those. Looks like it, no, I think it's just the way the nib went. It did take to the pastel. The other thing I want to notice is white gesso can sometimes knock down the opacity of blacks as well. So this is another reason that I'm, this goes into the swatch folder and becomes part of my reference. Okay, so black fine liners. What have we got? We got We've got the Pitt pen, also comes in a whole range of fine liners there, so you know, they come in all the different nibs. So let's assume Pitt pen is Pitt pen. The contents of the ink is exactly the same. I'm going to go for a Pigma Micron, and let's see what I haven't used out of here. I have a Winsor & Newton. I have I have a Spectrum Noir art liner. What are these guys? Yeah, these are art liners. Let me actually change that for a thicker nib so that we can see how that goes. What are you? Got another guy in here. A random one with no brand on, so there's no point in me testing that one. But I do have, because as you noticed, I am trying with Prismacolor. I am trying. I upset half a nation with my review on Prismacolor pencils. So I've got some of their Technique kits, which I will talk to you about later. But they did come with some fine liners, so let's include them. But yeah, you can, people, you can stop having a go. If you are a Prismacolor fan, that you are so much of a fan that you want to try to tell me off for my quality control review video, you don't need to do that. It's okay. You love it. That is great. There is plenty of wonderful materials for everybody, and we don't all have to like the same thing. But I just want you to know I'm trying, okay? And I'm gonna let you know how I got on with their Technique kits to see if that helps me love Prismacolor. But let's carry on with this test. So I have the Sharpie S Gel. How does this go? Whoosh. A lot of these are obviously fine, so we're not going to get, oops, we're not going to get a huge line to work with. Then we have the Spectrum Noir art liner. Whoosh. Yep, so currently that's the only video of mine where people are kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's actually so much support in the comment section and the messages that I've received. Here comes the uni pen. Because, you know, I'm not lying in my video. A lot of people feel the same way I feel. Let's do this one. But it is definitely the one video where I get a little sad to see comments from people who are telling me off for having my view, or telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, and kind of being really hostile. I don't mind positive critique or anything like that, but I guess it's the way it's worded, you know. What are we calling this? The fine line. Ooh, wow, check that out for a nib. This came in a sample goodie bag, I think from CassArt when I was a student, and they do like student days each year, and then if you place an order and you get this cool like goodie bag full of Oh wow, this is fancy to write. You know what? I don't know if it is a good pen or whether it's just got such a cool nib that it makes you feel like it is. Yeah, I don't know what to call this either. So this was just the spare column. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Here comes the Micron. Bit of skipping. Which one was it? Over roundabout here. But yeah, I mean that's expected. It's oil pastel. Oil repels pretty much everything. All right, that is all the pens taken care of. Let's move on to some crayons now. So we're going to go with the oil pastel. We're going to do the Neocolor 1 and the Neocolor 2. Okay. Hard to tell because of the texture of the paper, but I don't think it really likes the acrylic too much. But I mean, it will go on top of everything. It's just, there may be something better. Okay, so Neocolor 1, these are the two crayons from the, you know, there's some obviously confusion between Neocolor 1 and Neocolor 2, and sometimes people buy the wrong thing. If you're looking for the wax crayon which will resist water, you want the Neocolor 1. Think of these as your gourmet crayons, okay? These are top tier. If you're looking for the water-based crayons which will activate with water, then Neocolor 2 is the one for you. And in this test, if you have gessos, distress crayons, sorry, not my mistake, gelatos, distress crayons, or any of the other water-based crayons, you're probably going to get similar results. A lot of those, however, are crafting qualities, so they don't pack as much pigment as the Caran d'Ache. But yeah, I think, you know, in terms of this test which we're doing today, which is how does it layer, and you know, the results will still be the same. It will just be the pigment load that you'll find to be different. So here we go, Neocolor 1. Not liking the acrylic. This is okay. I don't like it on the gesso too much, but then I'm also not liking it too much on top of the acrylic. And then wax crayon with wax crayon, I mean, these are the same. It's going to blend as designed. And then for our layering test later, we can expect that there will be some resist on any of the water-based stuff. Such is the nature of wax. Here comes the Neocolor 2. So Neocolor 2s, you have got the option of using them without the water reaction, not a problem. But where you will have an issue is if you are trying to use it as a crayon and then going on top of it with something water-based. But we will discover that later on. Alright, where are we up to now? So let me do the Wildcard pencils, which are the China marker. Has a good industrial use, this China marker. I used it on PVC piping when I needed to measure and cut. So it will go onto some interesting surfaces. But so will the Stabilo All. The Stabilo All is apparently really good on going on lots of surfaces. We'll be the judge of that in a minute. But it is also water reactive. Any of the water reactive materials I'm not going to activate with water, because we're only going to add to what we already know about how water is going to react to it, but also because it's going to water down the pigment, and I'm kind of more interested in how these materials are working neat without any water reaction where possible. So China marker and Stabilo All. See, some artists use these. I don't know if, I bought it to follow along with some tutorials and classes and stuff. I'm not sure how else to use it really. Stabilo All. Ah, no. Okay, let's see if I can do the laser. No, okay. I'm going to need to sharpen this. Oh dear. So, how's the weather where you guys are? Are you having a nice New Year's? Is everything going well? Are you excited for everything that's happening? I hope so. Here we go. Alright, so these are very crumbly. Especially if you're trying to get a hard layer down like I am. I'm just so strong, what can I say? Alright. Now, what's next? Pencil time. This is where I have to make some decisions and see which pencils are going to make the page here, but I will then do all the pencils for opacity as a bigger swatch in a moment. So I think we have to go with our Polychromos. Let's do the Prismacolor. Like, I never said it was a bad pencil, I just want them to stop turning up broken. Let's try an Albrecht Dürer, because that's a water-based pencil. What do we think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try an Inktense, because it'd be cool to see how that reacts with something watercolor based over here. Let's try a Pitt Pastel so that we've got something chalky going in. Let's maybe try the charcoal, because charcoal is different to pastel, even though I don't care. I mix my pastels and charcoal. They have to talk to each other. They're very, very close. And then let's go for decisions. Okay, let's do the Derwent Drawing because it is, super top tier. And let's go for Luminance. And then we'll do all of those again on the other side. Did I pick out? Okay, I think I should have another black pencil. Let me double check. Okay, yeah, I'm going to throw in a Derwent Chroma Flow as well in the opacity check. So we are going for Prismacolor. So I'm going to do this, we're going to Polychromos, Albrecht Dürer, Inktense, Pitt Pastel, Charcoal, Derwent Drawing, and Luminance. Okay, Prismacolor on the coloring paper that you gave me. Done. Okay. Oh, now let's pull in this. Okay. I'm not saying I need 12 desks, but you know, I do need a bit more space. Okay. Polychromos. There you go, in case you didn't know, Prismacolor is more opaque than Polychromos. Albrecht Dürer. So again, in terms of any reactions to the underlying mediums, this could equally be any of your watercolor pencils. This one goes over here because it's water-based. But of course you could use it dry if you're not going to activate it. But yeah, the water-based doesn't have the same opacity usually. She says, grabbing an Inktense. So let's see how Inktense does. So Inktense is slightly different because it is an ink turned into a pencil, and it will react with the water. And then once it's been reacted, it is largely permanent. So you might shift it a little bit, but it's supposed to be pretty permanent. Definitely looks blacker. Pitt Pastel. So scratchy, scratchy, scratchy. Doesn't like anything waxy or oily. Does like gesso. Ta-da! Okay. Derwent Charcoal. Scratchy, scratchy again. Same results on the waxy, oily side of things. and I specifically picked out the dark charcoal. There's like a dark, medium, light. It's my little Laffy Waffy. But very smudgy, very messy. And now I need to clean up everything. We move on now to the Derwent drawing. Very smooth, very soft. Lovely pencils, these ones. Very limited color range. But mix them in. If you haven't seen my video so far, I have done an ultimate coloring chart for you. It is free to download as well. There's a link in the description where I've combined one giant coloring chart for the Derwent drawing, the Caran d'Ache Luminance, and the Derwent Lightfast. Okay, Luminance time. Because those are my softer, highly Lightfast pencils. So those are the ones that I would be doing, you know, saving for best. And when I do use them, I want all the colors. So I know that they play nicely. So why would I have them in separate color charts? Oh, these are so soft and so smooth. And very opaque. I dare say it is more opaque than Prismacolor, but there is also a price jump between those two pencils. So that's the way that goes. And then to just complete this side of things before we look back at what we've just done there, let's put in the Derwent Lightfast. The Derwent Coloursoft. And the Derwent Chromaflow. And let's see what we've learnt here. Feel free to take a screenshot. You can pause the video, take a screenshot if you like. Clearly the Polychromos stands out as being not very opaque at all. You know, well, I don't even think it's so much about it being opaque. It just doesn't have the pigment punch that the others have. Fabulous pen, one of my favorite pencils though, just not in the realms of a black pencil, but I have found it will go on top of a lot more things, but I may have some other options now. Interesting between the different Derwent lines. I think that the Luminance is definitely the winner in terms of the blackest black pencil, so that's good to know. I've had that confirmed for my colouring now. And now let's see how we got on here. Again, feel free to pause, take a screenshot. Oh wow, we still have the second half of the test to do over here, but we have got definitely variations of results. So the waxes and the oils are always the one to look for, because you're going to struggle to find things that go on top. But something like Posca, where it just glides over everything, you know, it's like a really staple item to have. Equally, so don't forget, Posca is acrylic paint in a pen. This could be your black acrylic paint. If it's a nice quality, so it's got a nice pigment punch, then you know, and it's not too watered down with you know, binders that are going to take out some of that coverage, you're going to have a great time with acrylic paint on everything, including the oil pastel. However, I would say that it looks, now, there we go. Can you see, am I looking at this band here, how there is a bit of shine? You might find that, no, okay. You might find that it doesn't dry or stick to it perfectly, so that may need sealing. Also, I would say that if this was oil paint is going to be even more fussy about what goes on top. Sharpie S gel didn't take too well to the oil pastel, neither did the Winsor & Newton, but in terms of these fine liners, they all kind of cover. There's all a coverage there, so I could grab any of them. So I'm thinking eyelashes on top of a portrait. I can grab any of those. But when we do this test, this is where we double check that I'm using something that's not going to smudge for line work. Oil pastel, pretty much just a big beast. These gaps here are the texture of the paper, unlike these gaps here where it is resistance. Yeah, everything seems to be right. So obviously pastels and charcoal don't go on oily surfaces at all. To be honest, they don't really go on top of pencil either. Where's our pencils? Oh, those are the, yeah, so these are the pencils here. These are the crayons. They don't, yeah, you can't really put a powder on top of a waxy substance. And then we have some good coverage across the board really on all of that stuff, so that's good. We need to find out what's going to happen on this side of things now. So wax crayon time. Let me pull out, because obviously with doing these tests today I have thrown everything all over the place and I have made a wonderful mess. Shall we go for a different color? Let's do a do we want a lighter color or a darker color? Let's see. I don't think it matters. I'm just going to stick with the reds because I already pulled them out already. So here we go. Crayon first. This is the Neo Color 1. And I'm just going to go all the way down. And this isn't a test of the Neo Color. Ooh dear, yeah, I'm picking up. It's a test of how it, you know, how a wax crayon will react. Now these, what happened around about here is the oil pastel, the Neo Color 1, the Neo Color 2. What they want to do is they want to blend, okay? Possibly the China marker as well. Stabilo all a little bit as well. And then we come back to pencils, and they kind of want to blend a bit because remember pencils are waxy and oily, so they want to kind of mix along with anything else that's waxy and oily. Okay, so that's the Neo Color wax crayon test. Then we are going to go on to a chalk pastel. So for this, the closest thing I have to hand would be my Faber-Castell chalk pastels. And I'm going to grab a red. And we're going to go straight down. Okay, and what happens when we get to the pastels and the charcoals is they want to mix because they're the same family, but the coverage on a lot of the paint and alcohol based stuff is pretty good. This is now going to smudge, so let's give it a little dust and then take that eraser. It's gonna have to do, I think. Okay, cool. What's next? Oil pastel. I'm jumping all over the place. Alright, so oil pastel is under here. This is my cute little Pentel set. Nice and affordable if you want to get into oil pastel but don't want the price tag. Okay, so we're not really getting, so oil pastel on top of that wants to mix, of course. Yeah, they're not very opaque when it comes to this particular color, this particular brand, and this particular material. So I'm seeing the red through all the black, so it's not going to be something that I would use on a black canvas, for example. Okay, and while I'm here, I could do a little tidying. What do we have next? Acrylic. Alright, so this is going to be my Posca again. But that would be standing in for any acrylic paint, so it could be acrylic paint out of a tube. And I have a nice big boy. This is what I used here. I mean, that it was seamless. There was no streaks, no patches, nothing. I'm kind of loving Posca pen. I don't even know how I'm going to use it because I don't necessarily love Posca artwork because I haven't played enough with it, but it's very flat for my style. But there are some amazing Posca artists who do beautiful things. Right, okay, and I'm cleaning off my nib. And I know some people are going to cry when they see how, I've dragged nibs through different stuff irresponsibly. But I just feel that you can scribble the nibs clean again and everything will be okay. That's my Posca set. You can see that set in my haul video. If it's not up yet, it will be up soon. Nice New Year's haul video where me and Santa, we had a little chat and put our heads together for some stuff. Okay, interesting, right? So there's some streaking from something. But you know what? It looks like it's picked it up from the gesso. Oh, I can see some smudge. We're getting some differences between the fine liners now because you can see how it is grayer here from some of these. So we do have streaking from some of these fine liner options here. And then obviously then it's just a big mess. Basically, you okay, Katie? You okay? I could quite happily do a second coat over the top and confidently know that that will stay pretty darn opaque. I'm surprised about the oil pastel because I wasn't sure that acrylic would go over oil pastel. I wonder if it would scratch off a bit. I might let it dry. So, okay, I'm being really mean now. I'm starting to scratch away at it. I'm going to let it dry and I'm going to see if it will scratch off. Do you know what I mean? So it might just, I want to know whether acrylic becomes a layer on top, which won't remain permanently attached to the substance. So this is what I want to see, because on the paper, look, it's not scratching off the paper. It's scratching off some of these up here. But it's not on here. Oh, or is it on that one? No. This is where the science comes in. And then it will just go over all of this. I think it's picked up a lot of dirt from the charcoal and the pastel. So not a good option for those. What's next? Watercolor. Okay, so I'm gonna go back now to my if I can open it. It's old. It's so old. It has yellowed. And this is my, like, the first, oh dear, the first watercolor palette, proper one that I bought. And then I don't think I've used it enough. Okay, watercolor. So we had a reaction already. So I'm going to clean that off. What I'm looking for is any shifting of the ink in the fine liners here. So I'm going to add a bit more water to provoke it, to see if it will. And honestly, they are all holding up much better than I thought. I was convinced for sure that there would be some shifting of ink. It's giving me some thoughts. Let's get a bit more. Right. Which one was that? So we're going to have the Neocolor 2 obviously reacts with the water, and then we'll mix. So we wouldn't be using that as a top layer. Same with the Stabilo All, that is also a water-based. And the Prismacolor, Polychromos. Albrecht Dürer is water-based, so let's mix that. Inktense is going to react. Let me try on these ones down here first. Because that is going to react. Hello, baby. How you doing? Alright, so water-based side of things speaks for itself really. You're not going to want to layer with a watercolor on top of a watercolor unless your intention is glazing or to blend in with that bottom layer. Not usually anyway. Very surprised that none of these shifted, and I really gave them a chance to bleed the pen underneath. Makes me wonder how they're going to react with the alcohol marker now. I'm going to get a different color alcohol marker because the two reds that I've pulled out seem to have gone a little bit funky. And I've seen that with red pens before, so let me go for a pink or something. Let me have a look. There we go. Let's try orange. Okay, alcohol marker. I'm using Spectrum Noir, but this could be any of your alcohol markers. On top of gesso. You know, this is depressing. I swear, if all my markers are dried out now, after I used an entire suitcase to bring them here, I could have saved that money and just bought a different set of pens. One moment, please. Especially now that they don't have the refills. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch from the Illustrator to the Classic and use the chisel nib. And then I'm going to take my, this is also not alcohol pen paper as well, so I don't want to be too judgy on those pens at the moment. Not until I've brought them down and inspected them. Okay, so here we go. Gesso, pointless, just, you wouldn't. Alcohol markers are translucent. But what I want to see is with the fine liners what happens, and I think that'll be the only ones that I test. Okay, so how do these do? We do have some smudging, but I think to be honest, it's not as bad as I was thinking it would be, but I think I want to, I don't know, there's definitely alcohol coming out of it. Could just be this paper. I'm planning on playing with my alcohol pens soon, especially because I bought that gorgeous alcohol marker colouring book, so I want to play with them. But I'm going to be pretty heartbroken if I find out that all of my pens have dried out, because I think I will just go with a different brand. Loved those pens. Okay, what have we learnt? We have learnt that not many things are going to go over oils and waxes, and if you put water on top of water it's going to blend, so that's kind of obvious. But this is a really handy reference, and you know, feel free to repeat these tests with all the items you have at home. We probably have quite different art supplies. We probably have a lot similar, but we probably have different brands and bits and pieces. I was gonna do a black fine liner test, because I know when I've drawn pictures before that sometimes alcohol can get the fine liner moving, and likewise sometimes water can get the fine liner moving, and for some reason I'm not really getting much of that here. Everything seems to just go, I mean, look at the water on the fine liners, nothing shifted. I was for sure convinced that something was going to shift there. But again, with the alcohol markers, we've got some smudging and some dirtying, but I think that test needs to be redone with alcohol marker paper, so that I can do a comparison at least to find out which one smudges the less. But I'm absolutely convinced that there will be some smudging there. Hopefully that was of interest to you. It was a nice opportunity for me to nerd out. Like I said, these tests are going to go into my swatch folder so that I can refer to them if I'm just looking to see how can I finish my coloring or my painting or whatever I'm doing with a medium. That's how I'm going to use these, and also to see if I want the blackest black or if I want a kind of off black. Likewise with the whites. But yeah, no, thank you for hanging around, and check out my other videos. I really love having you here to share my little arty and colouring adventures with me, and I hope to see you soon. Happy 2024. Let's make some art.